Your thing counting down to 2?
No, there's no timer. Just an iPhone and a thumbs up.
Where's Arjun?
India. Oh yeah. By the time this is over.
8 o'clock tonight.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'll bring the Tuesday, February 10th, 2026 regular council meeting to order. We have several guests in the gallery today, so I'll just start by acknowledging that the washrooms are located in the main lobby, as well as if there is an emergency, we're going straight out the doors up throughout to the muster point in the parking lot. Should that be blocked, there is another way out back through council. Follow the staff and we will get you to where you need to be. First, before we begin, I'll start with our land acknowledgement that the City of Fort Saskatchewan is located on Treaty 6 territory and Métis Nation of Alberta District 11. We recognize that we stand upon land that carries the footsteps of many Indigenous peoples, including the Nihilwak, Dene, Blackfoot, Saulteaux, Nakota Sioux, and Métis. The City honors the First Peoples of this land and is committed to fostering reconciliation through relationship building, knowledge gathering, and education. I will start by asking for a motion to adopt the agenda unless there are any amendments. Councillor Ketcher?
I'll move the adoption of the agenda as presented.
Thank you very much. I will close the motion. Please cast your vote. Thank you very much. That is carried. The next part of the agenda is delegations. This is the opportunity for anybody present to come up and speak to anything on the agenda. You do have 5 minutes. I know I told you all were required 10 minutes, but that was a joke. Nobody is pre-registered to speak in delegations, so I'll just check if there's anyone in the gallery that wants to come up and speak. Not seeing anybody. Okay, we will move on. I'll take a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented. Councillor Harris.
I would move that council approve the consent agenda as presented, covering items 5.1, 7.2, and 7.3 on our current agenda.
Thank you very much. Is there any discussion, debate on that? Not seeing any. I'll close the motion. Please cast your vote. That is carried. We'll move on to approval of the minutes of the January 27th, 2026 regular council meeting. Councillor Blizzard.
I make a motion that we approve the minutes of the...
Sorry, Councillor Blizzard, can you just move your mic towards you?
Sorry, my bad.
Sorry, Mayor Macon, the minutes were approved under the consent agenda.
Oh,
That's true.
my apologies. Thank you so much. My apologies. All right. We'll move on then to presentations. Fort Saskatchewan Golf and Curling Club. Welcoming Denise Unger, Joe Tomanek, and Adam Pedersen. While you get set up there, I believe we do have 15 minutes for your presentation. City Council will then have the option of asking you any clarifying questions related to that. We don't make any decisions today, and following that, if any member of council wishes to put forward anything coming out of this discussion, that will come at another meeting. And welcome.
Thank you. So good afternoon, Mayor Macon and members of the council. Thank you for having us today. My name is Denise Unger, and I'm the president of Fort Saskatchewan Golf and Curling Club. With me are past president Joe Tomanek and general manager Adam Pedersen, and several of our board members and our club representatives are in the crowd. So the Fort Saskatchewan Golf and Curling Club has been part of this community since 1963. We are a board of directors for a nonprofit community group which caters to the community by welcoming people of all ages, from youth to seniors. As a nonprofit, 26,000 rounds of golf were played, of which were both local and regional players. We're offering year-round recreation that strengthens civic pride and supports the local economy through both curling and golf. We rely heavily on our volunteers to support our clubs in order to maintain and to grow. In 2025, we had over 800 volunteer hours, not including our board of directors. Our curling and our golf programs rely heavily on strong contingent of dedicated volunteers who are considered really the lifeblood and the unsung heroes, ensuring the survival, our operation, and the growth of our clubs. These volunteers invest their time and expertise in various critical roles to support the clubs. So we contribute to Fort Saskatchewan in really three key ways. Economically, through tournaments and events that support local hotels, restaurants, and retail. Tourism-wise, by attracting regional visitors and enhancing the city's profile as a recreation destination. And socially, by offering youth programs, senior activities, and family-friendly recreation that builds intergenerational connection. Sorry, just want to make sure I'm on the right slide. All right, so the Golf Course and Curling Club align closely with the city's strategic direction. We preserved and enhanced the important community assets. The restoration of our pond on hole number 8 is truly critical. It is our only watering source for irrigating the entire golf course. Without it, the course's health, playability, and long-term viability are truly at risk. By protecting this essential infrastructure, we ensure the continued enjoyment and economic benefits of the clubs brings to our community. This project protects an environmental resource, supports active living, and aligns with the municipal development plan and the city's vision for sustainable, vibrant community spaces. So looking back, in June we met with council to discuss the ground instability, the erosion, and the seepage of our pond. At that time, we emphasized how essential this pond is. It is the sole irrigation source for the entire course. Thanks to your support, a full geotechnical study was completed, and the findings confirmed really what we feared. The slope is unstable, the water saturation is accelerating erosion, and without intervention, the risks will continue to grow. Restoring the pond is more than just maintenance. It really protects the beauty and identity of the course, addresses erosion and drainage issues, and ensures that we can continue hosting tournaments and community events. Our mission mirrors the city's commitment to recreation and culture, creating spaces where people connect, grow, and thrive. So the geotechnical report identified several critical issues: slope instability, saturated soils, erosion, and groundwater seepage. These conditions pose safety risks and threaten the integrity of the course. Engineering experts recommend regrading the slope, reinforced fill materials, a redesigned drainage system, and ongoing monitoring after restoration. These measures are truly essential to protect the pond, the course, and the safety of our members and our visitors. So the scope of the project really is, the restoration plan includes the following. We have the excavation and removal of unsuitable soil, adding the appropriate soil for stability and suitability, drainage improvements, slope stabilization, and turf reconstruction. Addressing erosion and drainage here will reduce long-term maintenance costs and protect adjacent areas of the course. As an example, we currently are spending between $25,000 and $35,000 a year to fix our pump. This is due to the silk intake, which shuts down the pump every year as we don't have an appropriate pond liner. So the cost breakdown. So here's the big ticket. With guidance from Canadian Erosion Engineering, the estimated cost for full restoration is $525,000. This includes earthworks, engineered gravel, a pond liner installation, retaining wall support, pump stabilization, and allows for a contingency. Every component is tied to a necessary intervention to ensure long-term safety and functionality. So we wanted to share a bit of our financial obligations. And since the new board and management took over, we've worked hard to stabilize operations and address legacy issues. These include aging equipment nearing end of life, required clubhouse renovations following a 2024 health inspection, existing loan payments and capital commitments, and managing operations and adding inventory control systems. We have been frugal, purchasing used equipment where possible and prioritizing essential repairs. As a board, we've been working to support necessary upgrades and to monitor unnecessary spending. In other words, holding off projects where possible. But this restoration project exceeds our total financial capacity without the city's support. We're also rewriting our bylaws to ensure all future capital projects undergo full board review and approval, strengthening our governance and our accountability. So if the pond continues to deteriorate, safety risks will increase, repair costs escalate, and the golf course could face partial or full closure, and the community could lose a key recreational and tourism asset. Our restoration plan fully complies with the city's regulations and environmental standards. Timely action is essential to protect this vital resource. So we're requesting city's support through one of two options. Our preferred option, of course, is full city funding with the city managing the project. In this scenario, we would have full control of, or you would have full control of the project. While the Golf and Curling Club has members that have experience in aspects of the project, we do not have full expertise to manage a project of this scope. The alternative option, really a 50-50 cost share, with the city repaying, with the club repaying its portion through a 10-year city loan. In this scenario, we would respectfully ask that our lease remain at $10 a year during that loan term. Now, we understand we need to align with policy FIN-005-C, and we are committed to working with the city on a fair, sustainable agreement after the loan is really repaid. Overall, we would really also welcome partnership opportunities with the city and our club, such as support from the city's transfer department for tree work and related site needs. So today we're asking city's approval for financial support and project management to ensure the critical restoration moves forward without delay. This investment protects a key environmental resource, supports tourism and economic activity, preserves recreation for thousands of residents, and aligns with the city's long-term strategic goals. Your support will safeguard the future of Fort Saskatchewan Golf and Curling Club and ensure it remains a vibrant community asset for generations. I want to thank you for your time, your partnership, and your continued commitment to recreation and quality of life in our city. We open up for questions.
Thank you very much. Just for the record, do you just want to introduce each of you introduce yourselves and how you're related to the club.
Sure.
Sure, I thought she covered it, but my name is Joe Tominick, and I'm the past president.
Thank you.
And I'm Adam Peterson, and I'm the current club's general manager.
Perfect. I had a comment and then I just lost it. My apologies. All right. That's what it was. Councillor Andawa is online today, joining us online. So just so you know, the question is going to come. The camera, though, is up here. So I know it can, his face might pop up there, so, but you're looking up here for the camera. A little tricky. All right, so Councillor Andawa is first. So we'll see how it goes. Councillor Andawa?
Hey there, can you hear me?
We can hear you, but you're quiet, but we knew you were going to be quiet, so we will.
Okay, apologies. Sorry, first of all, Joe, Adam, and Denise. I'm in India right now. It's about 2 a.m. My wife's sister is getting married this week, so one of the things I've learned in my short married life is you cannot miss a family wedding for a council meeting. So apologies for being virtual. I did have a question regarding your presentation. The first was being, you'd mentioned about 3,000 users for the golf course. Do we know how many of those are local by chance?
We might have that information.
I don't know that we have the breakdown of whether it, sorry, now look at the camera, whether it is local, like the difference between local or outside. What we do know is that more than 50% of the visitors to the course are public. So they're not members. So out of our rounds, 50% of them were from public use versus from our members.
Awesome, that's helpful. And in relation to the project on hole number 8, is there a timeline for how urgent this needs to be done? I'm assuming with the golf season ramping up and so forth that you'd like to get this done perhaps as soon as you can?
So I think being reasonable, we would think fall would be reasonable versus spring. It's too close to spring to get this started. So fall would be more reasonable. Time, again, sorry.
It's okay.
It's face and
That's
camera.
all right.
Timeline is got to be somewhat when golf isn't, at full swing would be one. And then the second part is, just being, conducive to the fact that it takes time to get quotes, takes time to get, somebody in line to do it as well. Okay,
that makes sense. And sorry about the camera thing. When I talk, I have to look at my own big head, so it's just as confusing for me. My last question is just in regards to the water source that you all have right now. So as I'm aware, it's Sherritt that provides that for free. And this might be a little bit of a loaded question, but is there any concern with that arrangement going forward, just in regards to Sherritt's overall performance and whether the city or the golf club could tap into any other source if that water source was to evaporate?
Well, that agreement was consummated quite some time ago. We had an agreement, I believe, at the time with them, a written agreement. I believe it's in the archives. We don't have it at our fingertips, but from the past 20 years, they've diligently supplied us with the water source. We used to purchase our water or have our water supplied from the city, being we're right by the water tower and that, but that became a burden, and thus we created the pond and we put the line in from Sherritt to afford us the opportunity to have water available on site.
Awesome, thank you. And apologies again for being online. Appreciate you guys coming out.
Thank you very much. Councillor Harris is next.
Looking at the geotechnical report, it obviously shows the location of the pond, and obviously the geotechnical engineers assessed it from the standpoint of its stability. Is that the best location for the pond? I realize Councillor Andawa just touched on one of my questions was your supply of water comes from Sherritt. So obviously, is that the best location for the pond, in your opinion? In other words, if you put it somewhere else, could you integrate, your watering pond into your golf course design so that it ultimately makes it an interesting thing, as opposed to where it is right now and the remediation that is required and the cost thereof?
Fair question, Councillor. We used to draw water from the creek and pump it into a little bit of a reservoir, which the pond is built adjacent to the creek. We are a 9-hole golf course. We're limited for size and location of another pond. Quite frankly, we haven't given it a bunch of thought at this stage because we back onto the green belt of the walk path and that comes from the lands around Sherritt or around the pots and pans and that way. So we're limited to the space, but it might be something we would have to revisit or rethink.
Yeah, I know that throws a complication into it, but I look at the overall design, the layout of the 9-hole course, and the location of the current pond obviously makes sense if that's ultimately where the supply is coming in from Sherritt, as opposed to moving it somewhere else on the site. But I asked that question almost rhetorically. If we're going to do this work, is that the best long-term location for it? And would it be the most cost-effective to redo it there as opposed to put it somewhere else and then all the other impacts that you would have with the water supply on the golf course? So it's probably more of a rhetorical question. But
I might add to that, the distribution to all our irrigation system commences right by the pond. And it might mean relocating all that distribution, which would probably be a dear cost as well.
believe me, I understand that. In a former life, I used to put underground sprinkler systems into golf courses and parks, so I understand the methodology, and I understand that challenge. But I just ask that almost just something to plant a seed that if this thing goes forward in the right way, is that the best location? If you're committed to it and that's your best long-term objective, then I guess that's a decision the golf course gets to make. So thank you.
Councillor Wesley.
Awesome. Thank you for the presentation. I just maybe one little tiny clarification as to your ask. I know in part of the presentation you had mentioned that you were looking for $525,000, and then the slides kind of gave a range of 457 to 473. So maybe if I can just get a little bit of clarification on that.
Yeah. So part of that that range is because there's a couple of the costs that are we don't know until they get in. And so that was that range there is one of the things that the company shared with us is you've got to give a little bit of a range because there's got to be a little wiggle room. There's a couple things that they don't know until they actually start to dig.
Okay. And just maybe another clarification on some numbers again. As part of this, you'd provided a little bit of a sort of almost like a capital planning.
Yes.
Now, does any of this 525 or whatever it is include that? Or this is just strictly the pond, right?
These are what our obligations are. The two things that we are making decisions on, and it's all due to what's going to happen with the pond and a number of other things. The driving range and the power carts are the ones in yellow are the ones that, we could push those off if we had to. The issue becomes on the power carts that they're starting to age. And the second part of that is we have 36, and when we have a tournament, we're borrowing from members to supplement the carts.
Gotcha. And then there's maybe one thing just related to Councillor Harris's questions on the pond. Sometimes when you have to do a pretty big redo on ponds such as that, considering it does have an industrial source like Sherritt, has there been any looking into whether there's any water permit approvals that might be necessary now with a redone pond that maybe weren't applicable 25 or 30 years ago when the original pond was agreed to?
We have not looked into that, and I don't know the geotech study didn't look at that either. So
okay.
With any of that,
I think I'll let Councillor Nguyen and I'll cycle on through.
Absolutely. Go ahead, Councillor Nguyen.
thank you for the presentation. I've driven by this hole many times and kind of seen it the road over the years, so have maybe a tangible perspective of what you're up against here. My question is going to have to do with the repair recommendations as outlined in the geotechnical report, and that repair is to remove and replace with engineered fill to reestablish essentially what you have there with pond line for percolation and chemical protection. My question is, there's an assumption in this geotech report that you need the same thing in the same place, and this kind of goes back to what Councillor Harris's line of thinking is. Therefore, I would ask you if other avenues at reparation and restoration have been considered. And without a deeply intimate knowledge of earthworks, but maybe a bit, what I thought might be a couple of viable solutions are either a riprap slope erosion protection method, heavy rocks, right, where you're seeing the erosion, as well like a gabion basket, like a step-bead retaining wall, which you already have a retaining wall in place that is similar to this design. But those are two things that could be placed there that would not just excavate and fill the pond according to design with dirt again, but it would actually offer perhaps an alternate, more cost-effective solution, long-term solution to a problem that you've seen a couple times now. So maybe just make a couple comments on this. And in my design mind, if you had a retaining wall, like a path could even be rerouted so it's not in a proximal adjacency to the pond.
We had a couple companies take a look for us, like to give us options. Puttycombe was one who does a lot of work with golf courses, and they saw the restoration that Canadian Erosion, what they put together for us, was the right choice to do for this project. Didn't give us a lot of other viable kind of like options to take a look at because they felt like this was our solution.
And I might add to that, there is riprap planned along the embankment. Once they recontour it and reform it, they'll put down a barrier in there, a liner, and then they'll have some riprap and material put on top of that to hold it in place.
There's a big difference between riffraff and riprap. So, and then further to that, then have you considered routing the cart path? Offset further away from where the pond sits right now.
Well, it becomes a bit of an issue because then you move it up closer to number 7 hole with incoming balls. It becomes a safety issue at that point. And we temporarily had traffic going up there when we had the first slide occur. And while we were addressing that, we had traffic going up there, and it became a major safety issue. You're driving right into balls coming at you.
I see. Yeah, there's not a lot of space. I understand.
No space. And then we're going over all tree roots as well. So damage to the carts, damage to all kinds of things. So, yeah.
Yeah, good information. Thanks.
Councillor Blizzard, go ahead.
Thanks for all the information that was said in your presentation. Kind of heard that there had been some issues with the club in the past. How are you sitting now financially? Are you breaking even? Are we, in the green?
Yeah, so I would say that we're in the green. It's not that things were from the past. It's just there was a lot of obstacles. You think of COVID, coming through COVID, there's a lot of things that we had to get back on track and so forth. But as we took over as a new board, we started to sit down and look at the things that we could manage and control. And then how do we start to turn, specifically our curling club, we needed to turn that around from, it was draining from the golf course because it wasn't making money at any given time. We've seen that turn now in the last year and even part of the year prior. So we started to see curling reinvigorated. So that's a good news story because it's being able to stand on its own and support the expenses. And we're seeing growth in that club. In the golf club, we have absolutely seen some growth in it and some revenue. We've started to establish a rainy day fund with obligations from our board to look at how do we increase that rainy day fund between $50,000 and $75,000 a year so that down the road we're not coming to city for support such like this. So we've seen a profit in golf. I think that's been continual, but it's been more or substantially more over the last couple of years.
And you've had no money set aside or in a fund for potential issues.
We did. We've started to erode that because we've had some of the 2024 health and safety report, had to repair floors in our kitchen because there's asbestos, a number of other issues that came up unexpected, right? Like, so a number of things, we had to put a new fuel tank in that cost us money because we weren't following whatever environmental rules and guidelines. And then there's been equipment that we've had to address. It was an aging equipment that we have at the golf course, so we've really had to address some of that stuff as well. And last year we lost 3 greens temporarily for the most part because of the melt, and we started spraying pretty rough shape on 3 greens. And so we've been able to purchase 3 tarps this year that are specific for that. And our plan is to get 9 tarps over the next 3 years. So really not trying to do it all at once, trying to manage that budget as best we can.
Okay, and for now, I have a few more questions, but could you fund this on your own over time? Like, you kind of made it sound like this needs to be done this year, but you can live this summer with it. Can you live another summer with it? How pressing is this?
I think if we continue to wait another summer, what we don't know, because the erosion really happened when we had a significant rainfall. We didn't have that last year. So I don't know what would happen if we did that. Like, I think that's the biggest question there. That's unmarked. So, and then we have a limited resource of water because we're seeping 9 inches of water every day. So no matter how much water keeps coming into that pond, we keep seeping it through the water, which is also why it's unstable. So if you look at that, I think that's the biggest piece, and that's the why. But also, every year that we wait on this, we're putting $35,000 out minimum on that repair of that pump because of the fact that it keeps taking in the silk. So, you know, that alone puts us behind every year, right? And so trying to save beyond that, it would take us probably 7 or 8 years to save to fund it all, and the cost then probably $1 million, right, versus 525. That's just a guess.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Ketcher.
Just a couple quick questions. I'm looking at your presentation, and you indicate that you make $1,443,443,000 in gross revenue. How much of that is for membership, and where does the other funding come from? And is that just golf, or is that golf and curling?
Golf.
It's golf and curling. So, Adam, do you have like a rough idea?
So for golf itself, just drawing for memberships is about $180,000 a year, and from curling dues, approximately about $120,000.
Okay. And how much is your membership? How many members? How much is your membership?
Currently, last year for golf, we had 142 members, which out of, so our prime members, we had 76 prime members. So that means that they are a full member with their,
with membership. So at 140, that's what we have. And how many curling?
Curling, we had approximately 225.
And what do you charge for your membership?
They do vary just on different leagues and different activities that they're looking to do. So, for example, for curling, if you curl in multiple leagues, you get X amount of discount if you're curling during the daytime, the evening time, and whatnot, and vice versa for golf as well.
So our Prime membership, Prime, that's any day of the week, is $14.50 for membership. For golf. On curling,
I'm not worried about curling. We're not talking curling today. Okay. And then for anybody just to come and golf, I'm not a golfer, so.
So for on the weekends, just to play 9 holes, $40 walking, and $60 for 18 holes.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I have one question. So, and this is not meant to be critical. We do have to be able to justify it to the taxpayer. So why isn't there an option 3? Where is the the city funds it, but the entire amount gets paid back. I guess justify why we as a council would say, yes, the city absolutely should go 50-50 or pay for it. What's the argument?
No argument.
Okay.
I think we wanted to keep it simple of asking for our top two.
Okay.
And then looking for, if you're going to propose a third, then be open to that as well.
Okay, fair. Thank you. All right, on round two, we're going to Councillor Wesley.
All right. Because I'm not in the golf business, I'm just going to try to wrap my head around. So what do you see, or what's the long-term viability of a 9-hole course in what it seems to be an 18-hole world, and maybe a little bit about what makes this golf course unique?
Well, I'd answer it in a couple of different ways. Number one, it's unique because that course was originally built by volunteers from the city or from the town of Fort Saskatchewan back in the 50s. When Sherrod Gordon chose to locate here, a number of the employees came and built that course. And so there's a heart and soul of a lot of the local residents. In terms of an 18-hole course, we'd love an 18-hole course. We just don't have the land to do it there. I think a 9-hole course has an opportunity for corporate tournaments, whereas if you're going to the hospital tournament where they're fundraising for the hospital, 9 holes is easier for an employer to send an employee than it is an 18-hole and tie up the course of the day. And so our philosophy is to make the best little darn 9-hole golf course around. We're very visible. We have a number of cars going up and down that highway. We feel that we offer a greenery to Fort Saskatchewan. Back in my old days, I was on the Economic Development Board, and we chose to put a sign on the road because we had a lot of people from Shell going and living in Sherwood Park. If you lived in Fort Saskatchewan, you could be on the tee box now. And that's what we try to promote.
I think the other thing unique about the 9-hole course is it's really welcoming to beginner golfers as well, versus going to an 18-hole course. Like, you often hear from people, a 12-hole course would be great, or 14, right? Like, I mean, because if they're learning, 18 holes is a long round if you're learning golf. But the other thing about it is it allows people to bring out their family and their children to come out to it. And we saw an extra amount of that this year. A lot of new people coming to golf. So maybe one of the significant others was a golfer, but the other one is learning. That was very much what we saw through our course this year. We also saw a lot of young families coming out with their kids and teaching them to golf. So that's really new, and I think that's unique to 9 holes versus 18. It's also very affordable, right? Versus paying for 18. So.
Okay, awesome. In another life, I am an instructor at School of Business at MacEwan University. So my next questions are courtesy of my students. So indulge me a little bit. But just maybe getting at Mayor Makin's point about the larger Fort Saskatchewan, benefit. Do you host regular fundraising events or something like that benefit a broad spectrum of Fort Saskatchewan residents?
So I actually host the Shannon Kimmett Memorial Golf Tournament every year in June. It's for cancer. So over the last 10 years, that tournament has raised over $125,000 for cancer.
Okay, awesome. And maybe just one last question before I get the hook, and Councillor Harris is giving me the stink eye. So, sponsorship. Just looking at other fundraising sources, sponsorship of particular holes, logos on the side of those carts, those new carts that you want to buy, all that kind of. Are you fully kind of exploring all those possibilities?
We Adam has spent a great deal of time on really putting together a good advertising package for sponsorship of the holes, of our signs on benches, tee boxes, on a number of other avenues throughout the golf course. So we've definitely done that, and proudly, I think we're close to selling out this year. So that's a really good news story. We haven't gone to the golf carts yet because need to start with A, get that completed and have commitment from that. And then we can move on to other options like that. Other sponsorship or fundraising that we have really looked into. We've applied for over 13 grants over the last year and a half, and we've been awarded 3, all to do with youth. So we actually did go out to apply for a grant on this restoration project and were declined. So, and we've applied for it, I think once, and just applying it for it a second time.
Okay, and maybe just one last question from a student who worked at the golf course in Whitecourt. Do you have company memberships too? That, you know, I assume the 142 members are individuals. Have we ever explored company memberships as a other alternative non-City of Fort Saskatchewan fundraising source?
We kicked it around last year, and so we were trying to figure out what the benchmark is or what the cost is, because all of a sudden if you put a cost in and it's a smaller community here, you put a cost in and then is it viable to, like if I own a company, is it better for me to have a corporate membership or is it viable to do a Prime membership? And I know Adam has sold maybe a couple corporate memberships over the last couple of years. Yeah.
Okay, because I think Councillor Nguyen is really interested in that council in that corporate sponsorship. I know he was talking to me about that a little earlier, so he's pretty excited about those opportunities. Anyway, I'm done. Councillor Nguyen, you want to elaborate on your sponsorship?
Well, while Councillor Nguyen ponders that, we are going to go to Councillor Randhawa.
Thank you very much. Just a pair of additional questions. The first to administration. Do we have I guess we have the capabilities, but do we have the bandwidth to undertake the management of this project in the fall if council was to go ahead and provide some support?
Mr. Fleming?
Yes, through the mayor, it will be something we have to take a close look at. The initial conversation we had was that capacity might be an issue when you consider that the fire hall and the aquatics facility are both kind of loading up on our plate, in addition to all of the regular infrastructure maintenance programs that we have. So I wouldn't say definitively either way, but I do think it's going to have to be a part of the discussion when we come back with if we come back with a report.
To follow up on that then, Mr. Fleming, does the city have any precedent or preference when we're talking about, you know, larger scale projects such as this on city land that, you know, perhaps we prefer or in the past that we have managed such projects? I don't know if you can speak to that.
Yeah, through the mayor, I think, you know, every situation is different and it depends on the group and the land and the implications of it. In this particular circumstance, I think I would feel like the city is the right one to do the work, but of course, we would have to look at the capacity issue that we just mentioned.
Okay, thank you. And one last question for Adam. I just want to follow up on some of the other questions regarding the fees and the fee structure and supporting the youth. I know back in my day, I think I got a youth membership, my brother and I, for like $200-300, and we could golf all summer, and I still kind of suck at golf, but I knew that was extremely affordable, and our rates, I want to say, are quite affordable when we compare it to the rest of the region. Can you speak to that and kind of confirm my assumption?
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, youth movement is one of the most important lifebloods that we have in this game. For young individuals coming up, learning the game, they're the future of what golf is going to be here in Fort Saskatchewan, in Alberta, Canada, and across the world. For example, our junior memberships went up from about 15 kids last year to over 25 kids. That's a huge, substantial growth in 1 year. And obviously having this golf course right in the middle of our city is hugely accessible for them. It's very safe for them to drive their bikes to the golf course. We have accessibility for them to keep their golf clubs there and everything. And in addition as well, we have junior programs that we offer out throughout the year, which sell every single year. And I'm actually looking to continue on in growing this program and finding additional instructors to continue to grow the youth movement within Fort Saskatchewan and surrounding communities.
Yeah, and what's the cost for youth to golf Adam?
$15
And for a membership?
for a membership, $225.
So very affordable. But that through that city program that we work with for that youth program, I think we had 3 sessions last year. 4. So we're looking to go more with that, and every one of them was sold out. It was almost immediate. So looking for more of that this year, just adding to that viability of trying to get more golfers on the course.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Councillor Nguyen, how about that membership?
Wow, that was now 2. What are we doing here today? I'll just
Go ahead, sorry.
I have 3 more questions, so maybe I'll ask 2. And please know that I really appreciate all the work and acknowledge the effort that you put into running this golf course. So I just kind of get to know you better. Questions. Currently, you must have an idea what your optimal reserve fund balance would look like. Obviously, this is an extraneous project that's come up and with a large cost, big number to it. What would your optimal reserve fund look like for what you have identified and as future capital projects that are coming up for the course and building? Go ahead. What do those numbers look like?
Yeah. So currently, right now, we are sitting on $110,000 in a GIC. So we're holding that. And again, we're going to have golf memberships go in here. And as Adam said, it's about $180,000 typically is what we're bringing in. Now, part of that 180 has to go to operating through the summer as well. So really, when we look at that 110, we still have some other bills that we're going to have to pay throughout the year. You look at that 211 that I shared there, you can knock off 85 if we didn't go ahead with golf carts and a driving range. So you can knock that off, but we still have some of those expenses that have to come, but we also know we can cover some of that from the golf memberships and other fees coming in throughout the summer, depending on weather.
Mm-hmm. Right. And what I guess I'm looking more. Thank you for that kind of revenue overview. I'm kind of looking for more like on maybe even on a yearly base, like how many like capital, like we need to spend maybe $20,000 a year, and we're going to spend $20,000 a year on improvements, like the flooring that you mentioned in the building or the gas tank. Like how many of those do you know about that you need to have done maybe even just this year in 2025 that you've identified? Oh, sorry. Did I miss something?
Yeah.
There? And okay, so this sums everything that you're aware of
that we're aware of to date although we've had a couple of other things that have cropped up, but all manageable. But yeah, for the most part, this is what we anticipate for 2026.
Okay. And then I'll just lead off from that question then. Because this is such a large undertaking, and I know kind of your position on it and how you view the city as a player in this project as well. Have there been any discussions at a board level or discussions from the city about having City of Fort Saskatchewan operate this facility?
No, but we'd be happy to entertain that.
Is that right? Yeah, I don't know. Yeah,
we would be happy. We look at other communities. Leduc is run by the city of Leduc. You got Sherwood Park, Broadmoor run. You got Stony Plain being run by the city. So there are a number of courses in the area that are municipally run, and they do a great job. The equipment is good. It might introduce new labor forces. Might have to have a unionized staff that are there. It would take a big look, I'm sure, from the city on it. But we would be happy to look at that.
I think the other thing is the cost goes up. Like, I think we're running it on a lot of volunteer hours. We're running it on a tight budget. So everything we do is probably secondhand. Anything we're buying, we're hardly ever buying new. So we're really looking at reduced. So if the city takes it over, I don't know what that cost is to you.
Right. Yeah. Thank you for that.
Councillor Blizzard.
I think Councillor Nguyen should just make a big donation and that would help him.
I agree. That'd be great.
It's because he was late. Yes.
So you mentioned a few times Sherritt feeds you. So does Sherritt water feed the pond and then you take out of the pond? I just want to get that clear. So if the pond is fixed and you have the liner and now the water is clean, do you think it's going to stay clean? There's dirt in the air. Will that silt come back in 10 years?
To the best of my knowledge, I would say unknown for sure unless something happens. But I mean, the whole idea of this is to stabilize that, and this is a long-term fix because of the fact that now we've got the liner that covers that potential possibility, right? And we've stabilized it so there's no more erosion.
And would, if it ever got to the point where it's bad, would it be able to be pumped out and refilled? Is that
correct?
Yeah, quite common. They renovate ponds at golf courses where they drain it right down and clean the liner if it becomes an issue. But it's quite a long term on that, probably 20 years or so before it builds anything up again to that degree.
and
This
then
is
make
actually
money on all
eroding
the golf balls down there?
Yeah, there could be a market for that. Maybe Mr. Nguyen's interested in that.
Okay. Have you looked into if the city, if we, can't do it? I mean, money is tight everywhere. Getting a financial institution to give you a loan?
Yeah. So have we gone to our bank to do that? No. I work for a bank, so looking at my experience, we have no collateral to put up against a loan like this. So without collateral, I don't know what bank is going to give us $525,000 to do a restoration.
Okay. And just one last little thing. You mentioned the junior members, now 25. Is that part of the 142 or is that on top of those?
That's inclusive of
Okay,
the 144 is inclusive of that. It's good to see that it's growing. I think that's the biggest thing, right? Hopefully we'll
Always
see.
want the youth. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. That's all I have for now. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That looks like all the questions for you today. So we will be in touch. Council will discuss, and if somebody wants to make a notice of motion at a later date, then they will do that. And then we'll move forward. Thank you. It is 10 to 3. I get in trouble for not calling break soon enough. Did anybody want to take a quick break before we move on to signage?
Good job.
Are we good to go? Okay, I'm being told yes. So 3 o'clock? 3 o'clock? We're just going to make it 3. All right. Thank you. All right, we are back from break and we'll move on to new business 7.1, city entrance signage. Jesse Bailey presenting.
Awesome. Good afternoon, Mayor, members of council. My name is Jesse Bailey, Director of Corporate Communications, here to present the updated design work for the city entrance signs. A couple of recap points. We're looking at replacing 3 signs across the city, 2 of which will be moved to reflect the current municipal boundaries. And next step is detailed construction design, which includes landscape and electrical design. They'll be managed by Grant Schaefer's team. He'll be back to present that work alongside the final design budget as well as the requested production budget. Quick recap on the initial design concepts that we looked at. So we presented 3 concepts on January 20th. Council had really good feedback on the different options here. Unfortunately, concept number 1 didn't get any love, so it's been cut from the presentation. Revision requests were made for concept 2 and 3, which we've made and are about to present today. So concept 2 was well received. Council really enjoyed the full color logo, the salutation on this, the welcomes you option here. They just didn't like the FS element, so we removed that here for concept 2. We're fine. Concept 3 was also well received, perhaps the most well received option, but also had the most revision requests. So council wanted to see the full color logo and the salutation from concept 2 pulled in, which we did. As well, we wanted to connect Fort and Saskatchewan closer, so red is a city, not a city and province, so we did that. And then we also increased the water icon, so it didn't bleed into the top blue banner as much. So minor revision requests on all 2. I know we talked about the water tower itself. There was a number of councillors that voiced concern about having it there, but majority of the council seemed to be okay with it, so we kept it in knowing that we could discuss this today. Here's a summary of the 2 concepts for consideration. And administration has a motion recommendation that council approve city entrance signage design concept 3 and authorize administration to proceed to the detailed construction design phase. That concludes my presentation. I'm happy to take any questions.
Great, thank you, Mr. Bailey. So you can ask questions or you can go ahead and make a motion if you would like. I'll start with Councillor Blizzard.
I'll do both. But I do have one question first. So I think our official name is the City of Fort Saskatchewan. So I'm just wondering why in option 3 we don't put that. It doesn't have to be big, but somewhere in there, the City of.
Mm-hmm. That's a good question.
Is there an issue with size or?
The chamber? Pardon? No, we could absolutely do that. There's no requirement. We say the City of Fort Saskatchewan like legal documents. Here I think it was just made this way to be a bit cleaner. Natalie's unfortunately not here to confirm all of this, but that would be my recommendation or my assumption of why she left it off here. But we can absolutely add it in. It's not a big deal.
Okay. Well, I'll make the motion for concept 3 if that's okay. And then maybe get some feedback on that, whether others feel the same.
Sure.
So I make a motion that we approve concept 3 for the city entrance signs.
Thank you. I'll accept the motion. Do you wish to speak to it?
Yeah, I mean, I like this when all 3 came forward. Now I find as much as the FS on this side didn't impress me a ton, now I find number 2 looks like number 1. It's just kind of bare bones. Number 3 adds a little bit more. I like the blocks right away. I do like the water tower on there. I like the color of the logo. So I like number 3.
Thank you. I'll go to Councillor Harris.
Beauty is in the eye of the beholder, and obviously art is very subjective. I would have to disagree. I don't like option 3 at all, quite frankly. Your comment about putting the City of Fort Saskatchewan, the city of, in there makes sense, Councillor Blizzard. I understand that. I don't like the monolithic nature of the block. It doesn't do anything for me. I do actually like option 2, and I think I was one of the ones supported taking the F and the S off because nobody would know what that is. I find option 2, quite frankly, to be more aesthetically pleasing. It's got some shape to it in relation to the, I think that's orange or red, or I don't know what color it is. It just does more for me. and I think it's less problematic in terms of landscaping around it. The water tower is an icon. I get it, but it's not the water tower. Water tower is just an aging piece of municipal infrastructure that will eventually be torn down because we will not be able to maintain it. We do have a project on the works right now to paint the Little People back up there, which I understand the community was very engaged about. And we have to thank Councillor Blizzard for that, because ultimately that allowed us to get good input from the public as to how they felt about our Little People without having to spend a lot of money to do an engagement. So in that context, I think that made a lot of sense for the water tower in its present location. But we are not a city that's known for a water tower. We're probably known for the city with a water tower with Little People on it, which is kind of funky. But the water tower itself is just an aging, monolithic piece of municipal infrastructure that municipalities that distribute water get rid of over time because they're problematic and they're costly to maintain. So I don't see any redeeming value, personally, for having the water tower on our entrance sign, when all you have to do is go 3.5 kilometers down the road and turn left, and it's right there, and you can take it in in all its beauty. So having it on the entrance signs is of no value to me personally. And again, it's in the eye of the beholder, and I totally get that. But I'm expressing my point of view, and that is that I prefer option 2, quite frankly. And I think I would be surprised if the revised work, if we went out to the public, wouldn't get more context approval in that regard. My humble opinion. Thank you.
Councillor Catcher.
So I think I was quite vocal last time that I hated the water tower on there. So seeing it still on there, I'm voting against concept 3. And my reasons, again, were the fact, and reiterating some of what Councillor Harris said, that I said at the last meeting, is our foundation of Fort Saskatchewan. Our foundation is our history of the fort, of the 1875 Northwest Mounted Police. It had nothing to do with the water tower. If we want to put all of our icons on there, then throw the sheep across the bottom. I'm trying to think what our other icons are. But, I can take either concept minus the water tower, but if it's going to be on there, then I will lean towards concept 2.
Thank you.
That's it.
Thank you very much. I'll go next in the speaking order. I love concept 3. I think that the modifications that you made were exactly what the public was asking for. And I got it. When I look at and we know I did an informal poll to see what the community thought, and now it got the most amount of engagement of any post that I did. It was well over 40,000. And a lot of, probably about 800 comments or likes towards concept 3, and a lot of comments that were very similar about the small amendments, maybe 80 in total for concept 2. So I think that that's just such a big change. And I think that concept 2 does look closer to option 1 now. And so I'm just going to go based on that. And a lot of the comments talked about how much they love that the water tower was on there. And I love that the RCMP logo is on there too in full color. I really appreciate that. But I think that having a couple different things that help Fort Saskatchewan stand out on there is really great. And I'm going to support concept 3. Councillor Randawa.
Thank you very much. We'll just start off by saying, kudos to Mr. Bailey and his team. I think you guys have done a great job of, kind of going in-house for this and presenting council with a number of compelling options in a cost-effective manner. I guess on that note, Mr. Bailey, could you kind of speak to how much we've spent so far and what we anticipate spending if we went with either option 2 or 3?
Yeah, through the chair to Councillor Randawa. The two concepts here with our initial production budget are very equivalent. I think concept 2 was $122,000, and that's for all 3 signs. And then concept 3 was at $129,000. And that's again for all three signs. So there's only a $7,000 difference between the two different options there. And then for the design budget, which was approved at 100,000, we've spent about 2,000 so far. And I believe Grant's team is going to spend about, he's estimating around 20 to 30 of that. And then the production budget hasn't been requested, but it's been earmarked for about 600,000, and we're not coming close to that. I think Grant provided a number of around 300 to 400. He expects that to come in at.
Mr. Bailey, I apologize. It is like 4 a.m. here, so maybe I'm being a little dense, but which of those numbers? So if I had to pick, like, let's say this motion passes, we're going to be 300 and 400,000 total for 3 to 4 signs? Or, sorry, which of those numbers should I be?
No, that's correct. That would be for all of the 3 signs plus the landscaping and electrical work. So it would include the landscaping and electrical design work, as well as the actual production of all of those things.
Okay. I appreciate that. And my last question is, so if this motion passes, will we be adding the city to this concept 3?
We can absolutely do that. I think we will want to amend the motion, but that's very easy to do.
Yeah, we can, is that considered friendly and we kind of look around, or is that one need a full amending motion legislative? It's just to add the city of above the words Fort Saskatchewan, just like in option 2.
To the mayor, it would be best to add a secondary amending motion, putting the wording of the city in, and then just voting on the original motion as amended.
Sounds good. Councillor Randawa, did you want to make an amending motion to add that?
I will pass if that's okay.
Okay, yeah, no problem. I'll go to Councillor Blizzard.
Sorry, just to make my statement on this. Sorry, apologies.
No, go ahead.
I appreciate the concepts. I appreciate the work the team's done. I think all these are beautiful signs and so forth. I'll be voting against it, not because of like any real specifics to the design. I think it's just a large amount of money we're spending on signs to make our, to welcome individuals to our city. And I don't think a sign is what makes a city beautiful. I think it's the people, the buildings we build, the parks, the infrastructure we maintain. And, other cities have built signs in a far more cost-effective manner. And as we look around budget time and we see these large double-digit tax increases, we're talking about 0.5% right here on these signs. So, I would really prefer to find something more cost-effective. And so with that, I won't be supporting this one.
Thank you. We'll go to Councillor Nguyen.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with the last comment that Councillor Randawa said. When I look at these designs, I do see that there's a value in kind of refreshing what we have placed, especially if there's this integration of what we currently have to welcome people to Fort Saskatchewan. However, it seems like a very, very large number for what essentially is some metal and stone and paint. It would improve the look of, and what we have in place right now. There's no doubt about that, but I do feel like it, and I've said this about other capital projects before, the city generates a number that they think it's going to cost for this, but it's not backed by bids that they have in hand or quotes. And I'm sure there's comparable work that you've seen, comparable costing. You've asked the question of, how much ballpark might this be, right? So there has to be something like that in place. Guardrails when there is a budget a proposed item like this one up front of us, and I really don't see how we can come up with that number. Now, having said that, that's one thought pattern I have right now. Before I started thinking in the direction, I did appreciate the work that has gone into developing Concept 3, and that it is and encompasses some of the the major entities that we have that identify us as Fort Saskatchewan, that being our long-standing logo, which is on it's on the wall as I look across the room here, and countless other city buildings and marketing and promo items as well. And our water tower, God forbid it falls down, it's embedded there on our our welcome sign. I think that's something that, to a certain extent, uniquely identifies us here in Fort Saskatchewan. So I'm kind of undecided based on the cost for this project, but however, do appreciate concept 3 for the design as it stands. Thank you.
Can I make a quick comment?
Absolutely.
To the chair? Just a comment on the costs. For the signs themselves, we're looking at that $122,000 to $129,000 for the production of the work. And again, that's about $40,000 per sign, a little bit over. So with signage, for example, I know Councillor Rendau brought up the example of Calgary, how they were able to get it for a lot cheaper. But in signage world, like 1 to 3 signs is already a noticeable difference in costs. And then 3 to 10 is a much bigger cost break. We just don't have the ability to print 10 signs, so we can never get up to that cost break. We can only print 3. And at that low quantity, you just can't really wiggle the numbers around too much. So, I mean, half the cost is the foundational work, the pouring of the concrete. So we can't avoid that no matter what we do to the design. It's always going to be there. And then we've talked with the production company and the vendors to see, you know, what's costing a lot of money, what can we reduce, etc. We have reduced. We've chosen some pretty cost affordable materials, but there's not a lot that you can do because these signs have to be a certain size because they have to be legible from the highway. So we're stuck to a certain size. We're stuck to the concrete foundation, etc. All of that just gives us a certain cost that we have to work from, and then adding the design just bumps it up a little bit, but there's not a ton of wiggle room there. Because we can only produce 3 of them. If we could produce a lot more, we would be able to get a better cost break, if that helps.
Councillor Wesley?
Thank you. I fully appreciate that sometimes when the first thing you drive in, when you come into a new city, that you see the sign welcoming you there. And I think it's important that that sign look, professional. It should look nice. It's that first blush, first impression that people have of your city as they drive in. So I would hate to go overly, cheap on something like that because it's kind of an important first impression. I guess my question to you, Jesse, is I'm just curious. As you're speeding into Fort Saskatchewan, it's 70 kilometers an hour, the official posted speed limit, no faster. Which one of these 2 signs would capture your eye that you're coming into Fort Saskatchewan better, do you think? In your professional judgment as a communications professional, years and years of experience.
Oof, what a good question. Through the chair. I think it depends on what you like aesthetically. As Councillor Harris said, it's very subjective. If you like one design, it might catch your eye more than the other. They're definitely sized, so the letters are large enough to be read from the highway, so they should both catch your eye. You should be able to read them both equally well. And I think also one of the councillors mentioned that some of these signs might lend to more landscaping than others, so that could be a consideration, but everything's been lifted, so nothing gets covered up when it snows, etc. So I think they're all quite visible.
I don't know if you answered my question, Jesse.
It would just be a personal
Are you sure
preference.
you're not in politics? Maybe we got the roles reversed. I should be sitting in your chair. Okay, so I'm going to assume that you're not going to answer that directly then?
Well, I would just be giving my personal opinion on which one I thought was better, but I think your question was which one would stand out and be more legible from the highway at 70 kilometers an hour, and they would both be legible.
Thanks a lot, Jesse.
No problem.
Oh, sorry. Councillor Harris.
Jesse, you probably can't answer this question, but what is the age of the existing, other than the one that exists in the middle coming off of Highway 15 bridge? How long have those existing signs been there? They've got to have been there for 40 plus years.
Through the mayor, I believe they were constructed in the 80s.
In the 80s. So that would be how long?
35, 40 years.
Exactly. So if we look at this, and I appreciate what Councillor Rendau was trying to get at in terms of the cost of the structure, but if we amortize this over a period of 40 years or more, then it's a small annual amount on an amortized basis in that context. And it really is the first impression that people see when they enter from the southeast and the west and the north. And so I think that the expenditure of the funds with the right design, the right colors, definitely makes, it's a strategic investment. And I think from a communication standpoint, that's really what we need to look at. I don't want to do it cheap. I want to do it right. And I want to have it as an enduring symbol of the city of Fort Saskatchewan when you go by it. And will it stick with you? Well, these things you tend to blow by this stuff, but I think it does have a recall element, and that's why I like concept number 2, because I think it is not as fussy as concept 3, and that's why I don't support concept 3. So 40 years doesn't surprise me. Thank you.
Thank you. I guess the next comment that I'll make, just based on the discussion that we're having here today, is, you know, in following up to what Councillor Harris said, these are old signs. And so to me, regardless, these signs need to be replaced. I would hate to go with an option that is far less money and less appealing just to save some money. This isn't a property tax increase because it is a one-time expenditure. And as Councillor Harris was saying, you know, these signs will last a really long time. So I would hate for this motion to fail based on whether or not we should do this project, because we've already given permission to do this project. If it fails because of that, it isn't failing because we don't like concept 3. It's failing because there's kind of a disconnect between who wants to do it and who doesn't, right? And so I would hope that based on the fact this is already approved, that we can actually make the decision today on which concept that you like, rather than to do the project or not to do the project. Because I don't want to end up with the concept that people did not choose, and you know, there was a far less welcome for, because people are voting on it not because of the cost, right? So I hope that we can just vote on the concept and not on whether or not we're doing the project, because I believe that we have already given direction to do it. Councillor Ketcher.
So I do have one additional question. Are we actually, regardless of what concept is chosen, are we going to move the sign out to where our boundary actually is located?
Through the chair, that is correct.
Okay, thank you. And I guess I just look at that and I just reiterate again, when you're going, okay, you're going to be coming in at 100 and slowing to 70 and you're going that fast. I think, you know, when I'm on vacation and that, and I look at the signs and it's very brief, and you see the name of the place. Quite often you don't even see the population because you're going too fast. But, you know, I still lean towards 2 because it's just there in your face and it doesn't have a whole bunch of things surrounding it. So I'm, as I said, I won't be voting for concept 3, but if it fails, I would vote for concept 2. So it's not that we won't be approving a sign today. We're just approving a concept.
Councillor Harris.
Another really burning question. Do we have any champions in our city? Did you?
I did.
Yeah. You should take the vote. Oh, I missed that. No. I was being a little facetious there. I agree with Councillor Ketcher in that regard. We've got to make a decision. Let's make a decision for long term, and it can be amortized over a long period of time.
Councillor Blizzard, anything on close?
Actually, I have a couple.
Just your mic, sorry. Go ahead.
I have a couple of questions before I start close in case anyone wants to come back in after. So if we were to go over budget, we're approving 700,000, would it come back before council?
Through the chair, yes, the next presentation is from Mr. Schaefer's team. That will be, he'll present to the final design budget, which was approved at 100, but we're not going to spend that. He'll show what he's going to spend for the design for the landscape and the electrical work. And then he'll present the production budget to you, which he assumes will be around 300 to 400,000 of the 600 approved or earmarked. So I don't think it would go over that number.
So I already wrote some numbers down because you still haven't given a total, I don't think.
Yeah.
So say if it is 3, just for a number, 129, then you said 40, I can't remember what that was for, and then you said 300 to 400,000. So those are the only 3 costs, or is there more still, the landscaping on top of that?
Yeah, so of the $100,000 that's been approved for design, these concepts took $2,000 to design or to get produced just because we had to work with a vendor for the materials. Grant of that 100,000 wants to use about 20 to 30, and that's to do the landscape and electrical design work. And that's that budget. That's the 100,000. So of that 100, we expect to spend around 30,000. And then it's not requested yet, but the production budget is set at $600,000. and that hasn't been requested yet. But the work that we're looking at, which is the full production cost of this, which is the 122 to 129, plus the work of Grant's design work, so the landscaping, the actual landscaping and moving the signs and moving the electrical stuff. He anticipates that's around $300,000 to $400,000, and that's everything. So that should be of the 600,000, if that makes any more sense.
So that's under 600,000 adding up, and it may be less because we're not using it all.
Yeah, we're far less under the 100,000 that's approved, and we're also less under the production budget, which is earmarked.
So I guess I would just want to comment that, you know, we're not going near that 700,000. Hopefully it is in place just in case, but hopefully we're more like the 500,000 mark, which is still enough, but they are signs that are there for a long time. If we were to take the signs we have now, because they are getting quite old, and maybe not all three, let's just pick the one, I think either end of town that are the carved look.
Yep.
How much would it cost to replace them with like signs?
Probably very similar to this cost. Yeah, the foundation is again half the cost, and these aren't very complex. I mean, the materials were vetted. So that exact sign replicated would probably be very close to the same cost.
Okay. And I see there's one more now after my questions.
Are you done your questions then?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay. Councillor Nguyen?
Yeah, I'm now confused again on costing of all of this, and I'm curious why we don't have a table in front of us showing us. Yeah, like I've heard the numbers that you've just said, but you could categorize each one of them and say this is exactly what each part of this project is going to cost. So my I guess two requests is that we have that for the next budget request of this, which I'm assuming is going to be
Mr. Schaefer's team.
Sorry?
Mr. Schaefer's team, and he'll have a full breakdown of the budget.
Okay, fair enough. And then so for the motion as it's read today, we'd be approving a concept design 3 if this is the motion, and detailed construction design, and what's the cost that's allocated to that exact detailed construction design phase? Like what's that exact number only to those 3 words as allocated right now?
That's the $100,000.
That's the $100,000.
$100,000.
So we're approving $100,000 of expenditure on this project right now. Okay, thank you.
Well, it's already been approved. It was requested.
This is what was already approved. That's what you were referencing. Right. Okay. So.
And of the 100,000, we sent 2.
Right.
Grant will spend about 30. And then when he comes back to present, he'll finalize those numbers for the 100.
Right.
And he'll present his proposed budget for the production, which is actually producing the signs and doing the landscaping and the electrical work. And he assumes that will be about 300,000 to 400,000, and they have earmarked 600.
Correct. Okay. And I think I'm grasping how this all works together here now.
I will have a chart next time.
But it's just strange to me we don't have this in a table in front of us right now.
Yeah.
When these questions have been asked, I think 4 times now over the course of anyway.
Ms. Mathugan?
Thank you, Chair. Just to provide some additional clarification, this is a major capital project. With major capital projects, we do approval in 2 phases. Council previously approved funding for design. That's the $100,000 that Mr. Bailey referred to. Once a concept is chosen, we will complete design. Then we will come back to council for the second phase approval, which is for construction. The decision today does not lock you into construction. It just advances us to the point where we can come back for that second phase approval.
Right. I appreciate that answer, Janelle. It clarifies it in my mind at the very least. And I'm still thinking, and I just want to vocalize this, that if we have to answer to residents and for saying basically, for $600,000 we got 3 signs, that's to me a wild cost. So I'd appreciate some refinement of these costs when it comes to the budgetary request from council. So thank you for the clarification. I appreciate it.
Councillor Blizzard, if you wish to close, just pop your mic back on. Go ahead.
Thanks. I don't have a lot more to add other than number 1. Can I make my own amending motion to add the city of?
Yep.
Okay. Do you want me to read it out, or is that good?
Do you want me to read it out? Okay.
Through the mayor, we could treat this as a substitute motion since you put forward the original motion, and I think that Jacob has that prepared, so you just have to vote on the one motion, and it'll combine the approval and the amendment.
Okay, so that we're all clear then, the original motion will include the amendment of, to add the city of.
Yep. So I believe it'll read the council approves city entrance signage design concept 3 with the amendment with the revision that the city of is added and authorizing us to move forward into detailed construction design.
Okay. Perfect.
Is that good then? Consider read in, or do you want me to read it?
I'll consider it read in. Do you have
Sounds good.
anything further to say?
I guess the only thing I'm going to say is 2 versus 3. You know, when I look at number 2, gee, it could be we're heading to Strathcona County and it's their sign. We could be heading to Edmonton, it's their sign. I think number 3 definitely is more Fort Saskatchewan. It goes back to our history of the jails that were and are still here. The original one, the block wall, it has our water tower. Yes, we're missing the fort, but maybe we'd need a lot bigger sign to include that. So I still feel sign number 3 is the way to go.
Thank you. I'll close the motion. Please cast your vote. Did everybody vote? No?
Hold your...
Sorry, we're just having some technical difficulties here.
Okay. We'll just wait and see if they want us to do. It's because the signal is bouncing all the way to India and back.
Can you just whisper it?
Yeah, it's probably my fault. I'll be honest.
To the mayor, we're just going to cancel the vote and recall it.
Okay.
So you can change your mind.
All right, try again. Please cast your vote.
Jacob, I'm just coming up with the same screen that shows the motion, but I can't vote. I didn't vote, by the way.
All right, that motion is defeated. 2-4. Oh, wait, I apologize.
I wasn't able to vote. Like,
Yeah.
it didn't come up on my screen.
Sorry, going to be defeated then anyways.
Yeah.
Was that?
Looking at you.
It's okay, they'll answer to the residents.
If I could vote, how did Councillor Nguyen not able to vote?
Now we will shift the blame to Councillor Nguyen.
Sorry, one more time here.
Yeah, no problem. All right. This will hopefully work. Please cast your vote. Feel free to change it.
No pressure, though.
Oh, I'm sad. And that is defeated. What is the wish of council? Councillor Harris.
I would move that we do exactly what we did, but with option 2 as a preferred option. It looks like it's got everything we need by way of wording, so we don't need to do that. So I would put concept 2 forward for council consideration. For the reasons, we've had a pretty fulsome discussion, and again, it is highly subjective, but it, I think, is the best long-term design for our city. It's colorful, it says everything we need it to say, and I think it's time to make a vote and move on.
Thank you very much. Okay, question for administration then. So this one could fail also if some of the votes are based on the financial cost of this project. So then what would happen then if this one was defeated then? We go back to administration, you would be looking for a different motion, different direction. How would we go after that?
Thank you, Mayor, for the question. If this motion is defeated, then council could give alternative direction, how they wish us to proceed, whether that's to bring more cost-effective options. I don't know if that's possible, but we would endeavor to try and follow whatever council's direction is.
Okay, and that direction doesn't have to come today. If it could be defeated and we could move on to the next item.
It could be brought forward again through way of a notice of motion if it's not addressed today.
Okay. Thank you very much. So for myself, I'm going to vote against this motion. I cannot speak more clearly about the direction that residents gave us, like 800 to 80. If we had done this survey ourselves, that would have been considered an excellent response. And I think residents are going to be really upset that we didn't take that into consideration. So I will be voting against this sign. Councillor Ketcher.
Okay, so I'm just going to make the comment. When we looked at these originally, first of all, we said we weren't going out to the public for engagement. That was your choice to go out and engage with them. This was about council making a decision on what we want to see as our vision coming into the city. Because unless you go out to every member of the community, you are going to get a difference of opinion. You have different people who follow you than I have follow me. And depending on who follows each person on Facebook, you know, that can skew what's being said. To me, this is council's decision. And we leave it with that. You know, I'll just leave it with that. But this wasn't about having the public get involved and telling us what to do. Thank you.
Councillor Nguyen.
On the contrary, I thank you for asking the public what they think about the signs that they're going to drive by coming into their city for the next 40 years. I think our mayor did a great job, and she does an extremely thorough process and time that she spends speaking with our residents, and there is a lot of value in that to me. So I think that's work that, frankly, our administration didn't have to do, and we got some great advice on how people viewed the signs, the design of it, and just to say it's the 7 of us that should decide this thing that really represents Port Saskatchewan and is on public roadways, I think is a way of thinking that you know I don't align with. So I support concept 3 as a design because it's not minimalistic. Like concept 2 it has some more stylistic fonts. It incorporates, as I've said before, some of like our logo, which is quite important, and thanks for adding the color to it. Our water tower has been around, I think, 70 years, correct me if I'm wrong. So, and we've decided that we want to recondition it and keep it as a functioning water tower. So, and there are elements in this sign, plus the natural stonework that is shown on the facade of the sign, that make it extremely aesthetically pleasing. And for that reason, I think concept 2 is, frankly, it's something that, I don't know if Photoshop is something that's used before, but it doesn't seem like there's a lot of artistic elements or elements that spark the intrigue of a passerby. So for those reasons, I wholeheartedly support, if we're going to go ahead with a design concept 3. And for that reason, I will be voting not in favor of the motion as it's presented right now.
Thank you. Not wishing to see anybody else speak. Councillor Harris on close.
It's interesting how these sorts of things can really divide people, but I understand that. The interesting thing about community engagement is we didn't engage the whole community. We engaged a very narrow slice of people that use social media on Fort Sask Informed. It is not representative of our community any more than any other social media. It is just the opinion of a few people. And I took exception, Mayor Ketcher or Mayor Macon that you did that because I think Councillor Ketcher put that out. This is a council decision. I've been involved with council with municipal government since 1981, and by and large, people want council to make decisions in their best interests. And we don't have to go out to the public on every major decision. That's why we're here. People have given us their responsibility for us to make decisions. And I think that this is a decision that we can make ourselves without having to go out, because everybody's got their own subjective interpretation of what is cute or beautiful or funky or whatever. And I don't mean to insult anybody on Fort Saskatchewan Forum. They just have one point of view, but it is not reflective of the people that do not participate in social media. I do not use social media as a tool. I know you do, and I know Councillor Ketcher does. And I get that. It helps you refine your point of view, but that is not, in my opinion, the way to make decisions. This is a decision the council gets to make, and that's why I'm putting it forward in that regard. And I would hope that the majority of council will see that and make a decision and move on, please.
I'll make a comment, then I can let you close again if you'd like, Councillor Harris.
I closed.
Consider me buzzed in again. You know what, councillors get information from lots of different places, and it wasn't on Fort Saskatchewan Informed, just for clarity. It was just on my mayor page. And I would maybe agree with you if it was really close, right? If there was like 500 of one and 480 of the other. But I think that it's actually statistically valid. And if I went out to a farmer's market, or if I went out to the Dow and I started collecting information on the iPad, I actually don't believe that the result would have been any different. People did really love Concept 3. So whether you agree with any member of council asking the opinion of the public, we are all allowed to. And I actually think a lot of members of the public would take exception to the comment that their opinions don't matter because they come from social media. There's a very diverse group of people who follow my page, and I actually think it's a pretty good indicator of what the city wants. And that's the reason why I used it in making my decision, because it was so clear and obvious, and the comments were just so positive. And even the comments that were on about the amendments were all the same. People really had a unified opinion of it. So that is why I use it to make my decision, and any member of council can do it, whether or not they're talking to people at their coffee club, or while they're out walking, or while they're at the Dow. That is how I made my decision. Not seeing anybody else, Councillor Harris on close.
Good point. If I got the channel in which you communicated wrong, I apologize for that. I accept that responsibility. If this fails, which I hope it doesn't, then I would suggest we have to go out to the community and spend $20,000 to find out what everybody thinks. And I don't think that's necessary. As I said, people have elected us to make decisions, and they're just happy when we make decisions. So I'll leave it at that. So let's call the question. Let's go.
All right, I'll close the motion. Please cast your vote. And that is defeated. Does any member of council wish to make another motion today? Or if I don't see anyone click in, then we'll assume it'll be brought back on another day.
Let's just kill the project.
Not seeing any direction. I guess we will come back at a later date. All right. 3:45, are we good to move on to the next one, which would be the notice of motion community grants policy, or does anyone want to take a quick break? Not seeing anybody ask for a break, so we will keep going on. This item is 7.4, motion following notice, community grants policy and procedure. I will go to Councillor Ketcher to read in her motion.
Thank you. So the motion is that by the end of the second quarter of 2026, administration undertake a review of policy GEN-029C and procedure GEN-029A and prepare a report outlining options and considerations for the following aspects of the community grant process. 1. Nonprofit housing organizations that are automatically exempt from property tax under the provincial legislation are not eligible for grant funding. 2. A reasonable cap is established for funding no-cost or low-cost events, with the example that's listed. 3. Requirements related to demonstrating financial viability are strengthened, including clearer expectations that applicants show they have secured or are actively pursuing multiple funding sources. 4. Organizations are not eligible to receive funding for the same event in consecutive years. And 5. That administrative procedure GEN-029A become a council-approved policy and the grant approval process be modified so that the initial review of applications includes 2 members of City Council.
Thank you very much. I'll accept the motion. Do you wish to speak in favor?
Yes, and I'll just go through each one of these. So each year we have administration come to council and provide us recommendations on grants to nonprofits. And really by that point in time, council really doesn't have much of an opportunity to, go through and vet them, and we just kind of just approve them wholeheartedly. And I've complained about this year after year, so I figured since this was a new term of office and I was sitting as a councillor, I would actually try and do something about it. So with the first one, it's really a housekeeping one that nonprofit housing organizations that are automatically exempt from property taxes are not eligible. So this was put into the policy prior to the provincial government actually exempting housing authorities from paying property taxes. So that's why that was put into there. So to me, this one is kind of a housekeeping one that they don't, and it was put in so that they would receive grant funding. And the grant funding was the tax waiver at that point in time. Now that the province automatically requires us to give them the waiver, that can be cleaned up. The second one is establishing a cap for the no-cost or low-cost events. And I really feel that there should be a cap because I've gone to enough events and my feeling is the city is paying the majority of the events in some cases. And I think stakeholders that are throwing these events need to have some skin in the game when it comes to hosting these. And it shouldn't be that the city is fully responsible for them. So the third one, just demonstrating financial viability, including clear expectations that they're actually pursuing multiple funding sources. To me, that would reaffirm that, they're not just relying on the city. And it is tax dollars that we're always talking about. So there's lots of opportunities to go out and get sponsorships. Some of our groups, I'll say the Historic Society, some of them go do casinos. And they maybe make $25,000 and they don't have to come to us. And they can do that once every 3 years, I believe it is. And not saying that everyone needs to do that, but I think these organizations should not be fully dependent upon the city. The fourth one, about receiving funding for the same event in consecutive years. And I went through, the policy is very complex. And then I went through our tourism grant policy, and that's really about only being allowed to do the one event, and you can't do it. It says right in there, you can't have it as a line item every year. So I was kind of thinking when I was looking at this one, well, that doesn't make sense that some organizations can be line item ones while other ones cannot. And they're both of our policies. And the last one, I've always complained with that complained about the fact that with the tourism grant, we have 3 members of council that sit on the tourism grant committee, and the most money that's budgeted in there is $15,000, and yet the other grant one is hundreds of thousands of dollars. And we don't get to review these or vet them prior to them actually coming to council. So I really believe that it makes sense to have at least 2 members of city council actually sitting on that and reviewing them, not just having administration do it. I think the conversation, if you had council sitting on there when they're being vetted, would be a little more holistic than just having administration doing it. So these are just the ones I came up with because when I read this policy over, it is so complicated, but I think it really is time for a house cleaning because I've complained about it so often. That's it.
Thank you very much. I'll go first on questions. Not really a question, actually, just a comment. I really appreciate the thoroughness of this motion. I think that you're absolutely right. It is time for this policy and procedure to be taken a good look at and make some changes for the future of it. So I will support the motion. Thank you. Councillor Blizzard?
Just a question on number 4. Are you meaning just for the ones that are for events? Because we do have some in there that are line items because we support a position within an organization.
We have partnership funding, and then we have a whole bunch of others that just put them in. So that would be reviewed and vetted through the committee. The ones that we have a 3-year contract with or obligation with, those ones would remain status quo.
Okay, so you're looking more at events that are taking place. Okay, thank you.
Councillor Randawa?
Yeah, I would echo some of the comments made earlier. I think this is a great motion. It's really well worded. Kudos to Councillor Catcher. I think council is going to get a good report out of this with some more details and a little more oversight. This is starting to become a larger and larger part of our overall budget, and I think it's just time council owns more of that decision throughout the year rather than just at budget time. So I think that's going to help facilitate that and let council get more fingerprints all over this, and I think that's just good governance and that's just good business. So I support this, and I look forward to hearing what the report brings back.
Thank you. Not seeing anyone else. Councillor Catcher on close.
I'm good on close.
Thank you very much. I'll close the motion. Please cast your vote. Thank you very much. That is carried. 7.5, motion following notice. Councillor remuneration. Councillor Nguyen, do you wish to read in your motion?
I can. So I'll move that by the end of the third quarter of 2026, administration undertakes a review of council remuneration and expenses policy and procedure Gov 009-C that includes a consideration of a City of Fort Saskatchewan's councillor scope of responsibility and time commitments and the associated impact those have on overall council remuneration.
Thank you very much. I'll accept the motion. Do you wish to speak to it?
Yeah, I will on open, and this was more meant for a discussion with council. I haven't, canvassed anybody here in the room about what their thoughts are on the wording of this motion, the intent of this motion, but I think it's something it's worth exploring. And kind of what I've been thinking for the last couple of years is that our council positions are considered, and expressly states this in the remuneration policy, are considered part-time. And I'll make these comments with the caveat that this is my experience and perspective as 5 years as a councillor in Fort Saskatchewan. In orientation, we're told that we don't take off our councillor hat, and so that means for 4 years, wherever we are in the community and past Fort Saskatchewan, that we are councillors and we can be approached as city councillors, and and therefore there is a lot of responsibility and time outside of what people see the work is that we're doing right in this room and maybe beyond our board and committees that it encompasses. There are evenings and weekends that are countlessly being spent receiving and communication and fielding that and doing your own research. And really, there is as much work and commitment and follow through with the position as we want to take on. I wanted to address as well through this notice of motion the amount of professional development opportunities that are available for a city councillor in Fort Saskatchewan through the policy and look at what avenues that could be explored if a certain member of council would want to take advantage of those educational and development opportunities that can contribute to the effectiveness and experience of us being good, well-rounded councillors. So I'm not going to say much more. I'd love to hear from every single person here on what their thoughts are with this, given what I have just mentioned. And I think, overall, like my overarching statement would be that considering us just a part-time employee is really kind of limits the maybe what the picture of our position sometimes entails. It's certainly not like maybe an employee of the city with a job classification, where that can be parametered by time commitments in your position or in the field or in the office or whatever that should be. But it certainly is a unique position, and I thought that it would be a good time to have this discussion with the report back from admin. Thank you.
I'll go to Councillor Harris first.
I can't support this resolution. Council is a part-time engagement. It's not a job. It is service to community. And I believe we have an existing process and procedure that ultimately kicks in at the end of every term of office that ultimately allows an appropriate review of council remuneration and benefits, I guess, to ensure that we are keeping up to date with what's happening in our environment. So on that basis, it's service to community. It's not a remunerated type of function the way an employee would be or a job. And if you want to get a job, ultimately you have to have experience, you have to have competencies, and you have to have experience. To get elected to elected office, you just need to be a Canadian citizen, 18, and live in the community. There are no other competencies that are required. And so I see them as distinctly different in relation to the remuneration for an employee or somebody that's got a job as opposed to somebody that is serving their community. I get elected to serve the community, and I believe that our remuneration and our benefits are appropriately reviewed from time to time. There's an opportunity to potentially look at one thing you were talking about, Councillor Nguyen, in terms of our professional development to make sure that we are adding critical mass to our thought process so that we can continue to do our job properly. But in terms of remuneration, I believe the procedure as it currently exists that was approved years ago is still germane and is still appropriate and should be the source of truth in relation to how we are compensated as elected officials. So I can't support it. I'm sorry.
Councillor Wesley.
Yeah, I'm probably gonna go the same way as Councillor Harris. I think moving into the election, I think pretty much all had an understanding of what the job would entail. At least 6 of the 7 of us did. Being the new person, I think this is actually a pretty nice gig. Yes, it's got a lot of hours to it, but you don't do it because of remuneration, if I can say that properly. I think you do it because you have, or you feel you have an obligation to the city of Fort Saskatchewan and the residents. Just looking at who is on council now, given the pay as it is structured, I mean, at least 3 councillors have graduate university degrees. We've even got 1 Cambridge MBA on council, given the existing salary structure. We have one member with 18 years of political experience. Obviously, the pay cut didn't distract that particular person from running for councillor. So I'm not sure we need to revisit it. I don't know that we want people who get into this job because it's got a good paycheck attached to it. I think maybe I hate to take an Aristotelian view of it, but I think it's almost like those who can should do, and we have a lot of that. So I'll be voting against it as much as I like Councillor Noyan.
All right, thank you very much. I think the comment that I would make on it is I do appreciate trying to ensure that the remuneration is appropriate, but I would probably support it more if I thought, because there is per diems that are available for counselors when they do full days or they attend things, that are considered more than just part-time. And I don't think that those are being used. I think if you look at our budgets every year, we're not even coming close to using those per diems up that we're allotted. I think if everyone was like using up their per diems and or going over, there would be maybe an argument that perhaps the workload is more than part-time, but I'm not seeing that. Where I do see probably some room for some real change is for us to review our budgets, because they're like where I think that council is maybe doesn't have the best remuneration would be around, say, education and like the conferences, because as I'm told, the amount that is in there is the same amount that was in there 12 years ago, and costs for workshops and conferences and travel to those events has gone up probably twice that amount in that 12 years, and yet it's still the same. And I think that really inhibits counselors from the ability to bring that knowledge that you can gain from those back to council and their role. So I would like us to review that part of the remuneration and expense policy, but I think it is an appropriate amount, especially considering the change that was made based on the last review that we had. So I think that's where I sit on that. Councillor Ketcher?
I know this is a very difficult one. Over the 18 years that I've been on city council, so when I started, I left my job with the city and dropped from 60,000 to a grand 14,000 because I really wanted to make a difference in the city. And thank goodness the following year they actually did a compensation adjustment. The difficult part with our remuneration is we get paid a base salary for basically showing up 3 Tuesdays a month. That's what the base salary is. And if we come for budget meetings, we get per diems, we get other things. We don't get paid to go to ribbon cuttings. We don't get paid to go to these other events and things like that. And for me, that I'm okay with that. But I think where the complexity has always come in that I've seen over the 15 years of being mayor is seeing that in a lot of instances, you'll have some council members that won't show up except for their council meetings. So why would they deserve more money? And yes, the per diems are nice, but they are limited in what you can do. So councillors who are really, really active, yeah, they might be a little bit underserved, but the ones who are just showing up for the meetings, I think they're being fairly compensated. For anybody who can not be present in the community for months at a time, they're being very well served. And I'll be very careful when I speak on that one. But it's a very difficult one about finding the balance, and I'm not sure we're there yet, and I don't know how we get there.
Still on round one, Councillor Randhawa.
Yeah, thank you for all the comments, and thanks to Councillor Noyan for bringing this forward. I would agree with Councillor Ketcher. I think it is a tough one. I remember, or Councillor Wesley did mention Cambridge MBA, so I guess I can talk about myself for a bit. I probably took one of the biggest pay cuts in Fort Sask Council history to run for City Council. from my previous job at a Fortune 100 company. And, you know, I did that because I want to give back. I want to serve the people. I enjoy, you know, being able to make a difference. But, you know, I was very fortunate that I had a very good career and that afforded me to run for city council at my age. I think if we take a step back and look at what kind of council we want to attract and what kind of individuals we want to empower to be able to run for council, with the current pay structure the way it is and with the amount of responsibilities that we have during a day, whether we want to call it a job or public service or whatever, the individuals that want to go and put their names forward, they have to be able to put food on the table and, you know, live a decent living and also, you know, be compensated to some extent for their skills. And so while I made the decision to, you know, forego a much larger compensation at a bigger company to give back to the community, if I want to think about others at, you know, my age range or so forth, I think that's very difficult because with the amount of council meetings we have during the day and the events and the proclamations and the boards and committees and so forth, it really doesn't afford you the opportunity to also have a full-time job on the side of that. So I don't know if I'll support the motion as is because maybe it's a little too early in the term for that conversation, or, you know, maybe the conversation needs to be a little bit different and maybe the motion needs to be a little bit different. But I think there is something that we as a council should be discussing here about what kind of, you know, council we want to attract and be able to have going forward that's beyond our own terms.
Thank you. Not seeing anyone else in round one. Councillor Harris, go ahead.
Mayor Mencken, you made a good comment about needing to pay, potentially look at through the budget process, you know, the allocation of resources for us to do our jobs. You know, I guess from a learning standpoint, from an executive development standpoint, from that standpoint, I think that's crucial. So I draw a very strong distinction between compensation in relation to the base duties, and the base duties, as Councillor Kitcher brought up, we're remunerated to attend 3 council meetings a month, and we don't. And in July and August we have 1 meeting in each one of those months. That's it. And so if you look at the quantum of the compensation that we get as it currently has just gone up, which I think is reasonable, I think that is reasonable. But in terms of the other things, that's a discussion, and perhaps this whole concept is a discussion we have at budget. And so I guess administration hopefully is making notes relative to how we address that and potentially bring it forward in a consideration for discussion in the 2027 budget discussions that we will be embarking on this year. So that's my last thought on that, but I can't support the motion on that basis. I think it's a broader issue that perhaps we're going to have to touch on, as Councillor Randowat, you know, in the not too distant future.
Thank you, Councillor Harris. Councillor Nguyen, do you wish to close? Go ahead.
Yeah, I think reading in this notice of motion kind of served the purpose of having this discussion initially. If there are different ideas around the table or different directions that people want to go, it's once again, it is something that I just wanted to bring to the table, you know, after reflecting on my experience to being a counselor. And yeah, you can put in a lot of work and a lot of time, and you know, I'm constantly mulling things over with family members and a spouse, and you know, there's a lot of commitment that I've certainly undertaken to perform my best in this job. So I mean, one of the other factors, and I'll just mention this, that was a driver of bringing this motion forward, was for future councils to maybe, as the position would be more attractive as a supplemental income for somebody who is a professional, who has experience that would be able to be brought back, and they could justify leaving their position, perhaps a salaried position, where there is, you know, a professional designation or someone that has a great deal of experience in their field. That they would say, well, I could leave that position and effectively replace that remuneration with what a council position would be able to provide them. So, I mean, there was a lot of different ideas going on with me when I decided to bring this forward, and I appreciate hearing from everyone. So, no matter, I think it's going to be defeated, and that's fair, and we can revisit this when anyone else feels the time is right, and they have some motives and ideas on their own. So, thank you.
Thank you very much. I'll close the motion. Please cast your vote. All right, and that is defeated. Thank you. All right, moving on to number 8, notice of motion. I'm not aware of any. Is there anyone who has a notice of motion? Councillor Nguyen, is that you? Go ahead.
I have two notice motions that I'm going to read in.
Go ahead.
And the first will be that at the March 10th, 2026 council meeting, I will move that by the end of third quarter 2026, administration provide a report on the feasibility, costs, and other considerations related to the implementation of establishing an urban hens program.
And your next one?
Yeah, so at the same council meeting at March 10th as well, it'll have to be edited. I will move that administration include an assessment of the feasibility and impacts of closing Dillingham Avenue at Greenfield Way as part of the planned transportation master plan 26 to 27.
Thank you very much. I'll accept those notice of motions. Councillor Andawa, do you have a notice of motion?
I do. If it could be flashed on the screen, please.
You can say as presented if you'd like. Do you want to read out
Yeah,
just maybe the first part of it?
Yeah, I move that at the March 10th, 2026 council meeting, I will move the motion as presented and distributed.
Thank you. And that is on road snow removal growth plan. Thank you very much.
Yes.
Not seeing any more notice of motions. Is there any points of interest? Not seeing any. Is there any councillor inquiries? All right. I'll take a motion to go into closed session for items that fall under Access to Information Act. Councillor Nguyen.
Yeah, I'll make the motion that council enter closed session to discuss ATIA matters.
Thank you. I'll close the motion. Please cast your vote. That is carried. It's 4:12. We'll take a quick comfort break. 4:20, or do we want longer than that? Sounds good. 4:20 looks good. All right.